Hey there, I'm Turner Schwartz. I am a service tech here at Aquablast. Today I'm going to go over some basics of rebuilding an unloader. Alright, first thing to do, if you have a vise, that's ideal. Just make everything easier on yourself. Basically we're going to have our top stem. You have two inlet ports and an outlet port. On the bottom here, what we're going to be taking off is the two stainless fittings and then the stem. Go ahead and get that in a vise. Take the top nut off. Now this is a giant unloader. If you have another brand, again it might be a little bit different, but the basics are quite similar. Just take off. You have a spring and a small. I'll just over. Inside of the handle we have a small plate with some bearings in it and a spring. If you just take it off all at once and flip it over, you don't have to worry about losing any of that. Next, what we're going to want to do is go ahead and take off these lock nuts. Those are just there to lock down where you set your pressure. If you use them, great. If not, well, most people don't. So. If you're not going to use them, you don't have to put them back on. They're only there if you want to be able to lock it to a certain pressure. And the top nut you can tighten down anyways, and so essentially you can lock it down a little bit without them. What we're going to want to do, just go ahead and take this stem fitting out. Just get that broke loose. Since we're in the vise here, we're going to go ahead and break this fitting loose. And the bottom fitting loose. Take it out of your vise, take it to a table, and we'll break into it. Alright, if you turn into your unloader, chances are it's either not going into bypass or you're having pressure issues. So the main things we're going to want to check for that and take our stem out. Now this is a new one, so we got a lot of grease on it. Most likely yours won't have that. We're going to look at these two. We got our O-ring and our backup O-ring on the stem. Just visually inspect them, make sure they're not wore out or broken. If they are, that will definitely cause you issues. Also inspect the stem itself. Sometimes with the water it'll actually groove out chunks of the steel, so just make sure it looks good and healthy. If all that looks good, you probably won't have to tear into these small O-rings in the back. If we're doing a complete rebuild, we will, but if we're just checking it out to see if there is an issue, you don't have to worry about taking that pin out yet. Alright, next we're going to want to go to our bypass port. The out port. It's going to have our kickback cone, which will allow it to go into bypass. There is a seat down in there. Just inspect, make sure that's in decent condition. Those normally don't wear out. Here we have our kickback cone and our O-ring. You want to inspect, make sure there's no damage to the metal, that your O-ring is still in good shape. We have a spring in here as well. Make sure your spring's not broken. One thing I like to do is just make sure it moves freely up and down. If there's debris in here or residue and it's sticking, that will cause you problems. So just make sure it's nice and free. Move on to the bottom port here. Instead, we're going to have a spring. Just keep an eye on this spring. It is tapered. The skinny end goes inside of the unloader. The fat end goes into the cap. Other styles of unloaders, it doesn't matter, but on this particular one it does. So as you're taking it apart, just keep an eye on that. Inside, you've got a ball and seat, and if it's stuck like that, that can cause a problem. So again, just watch for anything like that as you're taking it apart. Just inspect the ball, make sure we got no pitting or grooves. Next, we're going to want to visually inspect the seat. If we're going to do a total rebuild, we're going to go ahead and take that out so you can see it better. Alright, so you can visually check the seat just looking down in there. To give it a better look-see, we'll go ahead and take it out. We'll just take a number 6 Allen. thread it out. Now that one's stuck on my wrench because it was really tight, which sometimes they will be. Just go ahead and break that loose. What we're looking at is the small edge, where there's a slight bevel to the edge. There's supposed to be just a little bit of flat surface, but not much at all. So if you see like much of a flat spot there at all, or any nicks or dings, then it's time to replace the seat. If you get a rebuild kit and we're going to change all the O-rings, if you don't just need to change a couple, if we're doing the whole thing, we're going to need to take that pin out. So go ahead and put this in a vise. Stem will slide out. I'm just going to take all of our O-rings off. I will go over the order of how they all go back in here, but as you're taking them off, just keep track of how everything comes apart, because they do only go back a certain way. Go ahead and just use a pick, or if you need to, a small screwdriver. Just work all your old O-rings off of the stem, all your caps here. On the kickback cone, what I find the easiest way, because that's quite a stiff O-ring, just take a sharp razor blade and just gently, without, you don't want to nick up the brass. Just cut through that O-ring to relieve its pressure there. That'll just help when you're getting it with a pick. There we go. Seals from our new ones here. These kits from Giant, these are for a couple different styles of unloaders, so if you end up having some extra O-rings when you're done, don't worry. Take the largest O-ring, go ahead and put it on the brass cap here, get all the way down. And you're going to have two sort of medium-sized O-rings that are the same size. Those go on both of your steel fittings. Get them worked down in the groove there. We have one really thick small O-ring, which is going to be on our kickback cone. Start it on one side, pop it over like that. All right. Now on the stem, we're going to have some of these flat rings. They're not actually round, they're flat. And if you can see, one side is smooth and the other side is actually slightly concave. So we're going to want to put one of these flat ones on, and then take this small round one, the same diameter. You want the concave part always facing this round O-ring. So flat, then round, and another flat one, concave side facing the O-ring. Flat, round, flat, and then you take this thicker ring here, put that on the back behind all of them. Go ahead and slide them up to the front. Go ahead and take our brass piece, slide it on. We'll just strap our pin back in. Now on the stem O-rings, we have a round one and we have a flat one, again with a concave side. The order we're going to want them in, we want the flat on top and the round underneath, so they're going to set like so. The easiest way to do it though is to put the flat one on first with the concave side facing down. Just get one side started, work it around, double check, make sure it didn't flip on you. Looks like we're all good. Now we can go ahead and take the round O-ring, pull it down over top of the flat one, get it started underneath of it, work it around, pop right into place. Okay, when we're done with these kits, we'll have about 3, little flat one, a couple O-rings left over. That's fine, just push them off to the side. We'll go ahead and put our seat in. All right, so if your seat's good, we'll go ahead and put that one in. If you need a new one, go ahead and install the new seat. Put your body of the unloader back in the vise. And that'll just thread back in. You want it snug but not too tight because you are just going into brass. Okay, once that's in, go ahead and take your ball, drop that in. Take your spring, like I said, now watching for the bevel, you want the skinny end onto the ball. Set that in there, and then take our cap. Just thread that down. Just get it snug, we'll get everything tight later. Go ahead and take our kickback cone, make sure you got your spring underneath of it, moving freely. Go ahead and slide it in the side port. Go ahead and take our stem, thread it back in. Alright, now we'll go ahead and just get everything tight here. Just put the bottom in the vise, tighten the top and the bottom at the same time that way. Snug the side. Go them tight, but you don't need to go crazy because next time you need to rebuild it, you'll kick yourself if you get it too tight. Go ahead, if you want your lock nuts on here, go ahead and re-thread those on. Again, if you don't plan on using them, don't worry about it. Doesn't hurt nothing to not have them on there. For this one, we'll thread them all the way to the bottom so we don't lose any travel in the unloader adjustment. Just get them a little snug. Go ahead and take your cap again with your spring and the plate on top of the spring. On this particular one, there are no bearings in it. Some do have bearings, some don't. It all depends. Like on this one, our bearing plate is actually up inside. Slide that down over top. So you start getting resistance. You don't want to tighten it down yet. You want to wait till it's on the machine so you can reset your pressure. And blow off that. Go ahead and just get that into the nylock so it doesn't come off. And then that's pretty well all there is to rebuilding an unloader. You're ready to replumb it onto your machine and set your pressure. So that's pretty all there is to that.